my name is Clint Grease, and I'm a coach and trainer and a kind of new common law person. I've learned to refer to myself as a commoner, meaning I have no title of nobility. I have no title of, I'm not a, I'm not a royal, but I'm also not a slave or an indentured servant to anyone. I'm free. And we're all, in my assessment, we're all the same in that sense. We're all common in our freedom. And we have that in common. So I'm here to help introduce you to a new initiative that Catherine and Sue Ann and I have put together that will allow for a multiplicity of suits, in particular to address the egregious health mandates and that we all are more or less familiar with for the last year or so, since wow, a year ago March, a year ago February, depending on where you are. Yeah, I'm going to do the introduction of, and then we'll have time for question and answer a little bit later. So before I start, though, I want to make sure you get a taste of Sue Ann Caesar, get a little bit of Catherine here. Catherine Baldy is my partner here, and she is intrepid. And she's not only is she working with us on this initiative, she herself is right in the middle of the thick of things with a common law approach to taking on a DUI in her family. So go ahead and say hi, Catherine.
Hi, everyone. Actually, I've also started up another initiative for the superintendent of our school district as my kids' medical exemption, which I actually should have never asked for in the first place, but well, that's for another day, was retracted, or they're demanding my kids become up to date. So I've started that on the superintendent, and I've also, in the process of fighting the courts on jurisdiction over my husband and an unlawful arrest that occurred last year. So it's been a really awesome learning experience, and it's been fun to take back our power and basically get rid of any fear we had about dealing with these people. It's been an amazing experience learning the proper order of authority, and where we sit in that order, which is at the top, right under God. So I would encourage anyone who is just getting into this to rekindle your relationship with your divine creator, but also become familiar with what the proper order of authority is, which is what a constitutional republic is made up of and what our country is based on. And going into this against a formidable opponent, but we need not fear. We've got some good tools. So I'm really happy to see all of you here, and I hope that this grows. So yeah, thanks, Clint.
Yeah, welcome, Catherine. It's wonderful to be together again. Sue Ann is our common law expert, and she's delivered training with us called the Great American Law Series, which is a fundamentals course in common law. Currently on the line, if I recognize, we have several graduates, we're a majority, in fact, of people on the line here. And everyone's at a different level. Some people are just newly introduced to the idea that that there's this de facto law that's replaced our de jure true law. In Sue Ann has the greatest experience of all, and so she's the one who's going to be the lead on all of the intellectual end of this whole project. Hi, Sue Ann.
Hello there. Well, I think most of these people know about me, okay? One of the things that I did about 3 weeks ago is that I went to my law library, and I collected all of the writs that are used in common law. I was very fortunate to have found all these writs and for warranto. And that is when a public officer, a public servant, has gone beyond their authority. That's one of the things I'm looking to do, is getting the quo warranto together. And once we do the paperwork that you currently have, then we'll move on to the Corowanto.
Thanks, Sue Ann. So I'm going to jump into my presentation again. We'll have questions toward the end. And a few people have also joined. I want to welcome you and thank you for coming today. So we're clearly in a time of grave tyranny, to put it bluntly. And I'm here to work with like-minded people who want to take the common law approach. So the first thing to understand is these health orders, these health mandates by county or state are not law. They are absolutely not law. And so what we have is the opportunity to end government oppression in this case with something called a multiplicity of lawsuits. It's a common law approach to justice that you may have never heard of before. But let's first just get into where we're at today. You see, this medical tyranny that we are under is not going away. I don't know if any of you had the hope that it was going to go away. I know many people I've talked to over the last year have invested a lot of energy and time trying to convince others, trying to fight others, whether it's on an individual basis through conversation or by making protests of all kinds. I myself was out in front of City Hall a year ago, May 1st, demanding that we open up California. And people have been trying to sway the general sentiment. The truth is, after a year of mandates, this is not going away. In fact, it seems only to be getting worse. As we've been saying, these mandates are not law. So even though they've been around and people say you have to do this and you have to do that, they're not law. And we who know this to be the case, and especially those of you who've been through common law training, know that we're standing on principle in the sense that we know that no matter if 50% of the population agrees with us, or 10% of the population agrees with us, or 99% of the population, the fact that these are not law is all that needs to be known. We don't have to care about whether masks are effective or not, for example. We don't have to believe anything about vaccines or viruses in general, or the number of deaths or hospitalizations. All that is very important conversation to have, but we're standing on principle, absolutely standing on principle. And as you'll see when we move forward, the documentation that we're putting together is solid ground. So we're announcing what is called a multiplicity of lawsuits. And this is basically, it's individuals, and they're such as yourself and me, suing people in our quote unquote government, our government officials, in their personal capacity. And we're all doing them simultaneously. So rather than, say, for example, a class action suit, which is some distinction that you may have heard of before in the law or in the statutory law that allows for a group of people to sue somebody, we're not going to do that. One of the principles in common law is that you're responsible yourself. If you don't like something, if you see that there's a harm being done, you personally must speak up if you expect to have any remedy. So you can't, for example, just hire a bunch of lawyers or get together with a group of people, do a fundraiser, hire a lawyer, and let the lawyer do all the work for you. This is a wholly different way of looking at the law, that you yourself need to understand the law and be able to ultimately be able to present yourself in front of a justice and in a courtroom and plead your own case ultimately. So the paperwork in this case and the procedures have all been worked out for you. This strategy, this overarching strategy, which we're going to get into in a minute, has been debated and worked out and strategized by experts, and the paperwork has been crafted and written all for you. So what we really need is we just need you. And that's not a small matter in itself, because we're not asking just like for you to sign something and send it off without thinking about it, without knowing what you're writing. Again, it's your responsibility. These letters are going to be coming from you, and they'll have your name on it. So you need to absolutely understand who you are as the generator of these documents, what it means to send them, and what every word in the documents means. So we need you. We're looking to have 10 people minimum per county. So that's where we're at. And you need to remember through the whole process that who we are, is God's creation. The common law has its authority, not because of you or me saying so, it's because God created us. It's that simple. And the government, as we know it today, has replaced God and has made us their subordinates. And in other words, they flip things upside down. So we're God's creation. We need to be reminded of that. This is upon which the entirety of our authority rests. And so you will, in this whole process, have an opportunity to assert your natural birthright, the authority that God has given you because you were born on this earth. So look, this multiplicity of lawsuits is one of many avenues being pursued by many people in this country, fortunately, to restore our constitutional republic. And what that simply means is that the government that we have is our creation. It is subordinate to us, and it operates based on our consent. We create it for ourselves. Government serves us. We don't obey government. So the objectives of the multiplicity of suits, and again, this has been sorted out. We've been debating this and talking about it and considering all different kinds of what can we really expect to get out. And I want you all to be clear where we're headed. What's the end in mind for this whole process? So the first thing is we want to get a lawful court to hold state and county health officers personally liable for the unlawful orders they've issued. This is something that is unique about our approach here. These government officials can't hide behind their government. They individually, as individual people, will be held accountable. And then we also, in the middle of this process, we're going to be getting injunctive relief against these current mandates and any future health orders. And third here, we're going to declare that those Californians who do not want to volunteer to follow the guidelines set out by health officials are not subject to those guidelines. That's you and me. You may have met a few people who are following the guidelines, and absolutely technically, according to common law theories, common law principles, those people who voluntarily consent to the mandates make themselves subject to those guidelines. But for the rest of us who do not consent, we ourselves already know that we're not subject to those guidelines, but we need it to be declared that indeed we are not. And then when all that happens, when we win, legislators indeed are going to have to repeal multiple statutes and codes. And then I just put a quick note here that even statutory courts, in case you understand the distinction, statutory courts can become lawful courts when ruling on a constitutional issue such as this. So these are our overall objectives that we're taking on. And even so, it seems like a lot. We actually have we've carved out a workable amount of a reasonable set of objectives, considering there's so much work to do in restoring our constitutional republic on the whole. So then let me go now to what we have for our roadmap. So I'm going to just give you a picture of the overarching roadmap, and then when I get done with that, I'll be telling you specifically what we need from you, what you can expect, practically speaking, in terms of time and money and all the things that are going to be needed from you. But just before that, I want you to understand the overarching roadmap of what will be done, that we'll be doing together. So first, in common law, when there's a problem, when there's harm being done, it's your responsibility to give notice and opportunity for the person committing the crime, to make a correction. That's absolutely essential. I often think about, if you have a noisy neighbor, and what most people will do is they'll call the police and ask the police to talk to the neighbor. Well, common law, it's more honorable to simply have a relationship with your neighbor such that you can talk to them and give them notice and opportunity to change directly. So that's what we're going to be doing. And for those of you who have been through the Great American Law series or are familiar with some common law notices and documentations, we're going to start with a notice of violation and work through the series of documents such as the courtesy notice, the notice of default, and ultimately the notice of estoppel. And those are all going to establish that we've given notice and opportunity for these criminals to change their behavior, and predictably they won't be able to do that. So simultaneously, we're going to also ask the department, well, not ask them, but demand the Department of Health directors prove their authority, which they will also not be able to do. We'll do that with a document that Sue-Ann mentioned just a minute ago called a quo warranto. It's a Latin word. And it's basically a legal demand that anyone who pretends to tell you what to do, that they first prove their authority to do so. And they have clearly not done that already, and they won't be able to. The next step is to get injunctive relief against these health orders and mandates. So we included this because, in as much as there's a much bigger picture here in terms of restoring our constitutional republic, it's a kind of a balancing act. We've compromised between people who want to build out a constitutional republic in a more methodical way over a long period of time, developing common law experts, like going through training and learning to be commoners and to learn the principles and to build a whole movement, and then take on the powers that be, so to speak. Whereas on the other end of the scale, there are people who are very urgently wishing these medical interventions to be stopped immediately because there are serious consequences. The harms are happening literally as I'm speaking to you right now. So we definitely want to get injunctive relief against these health orders and mandates. Okay, so then when we're successful at all of this, we will generate a complaint, which will be the beginnings of a suit, and we will ask people to join us. So whereas a smaller number of people, minimum 10 people from each county, will have given notice and will have demanded that the directors prove their authority, we'll be working on getting injunctive relief. At some point, we get to invite any number of people to join us. So we'll have set the stage, so to speak. We'll set the stage, and then they can read all of our documents and then see if they want to sign on and just join us. And again, any number of people at this point, it's just more is better. And then we will indeed sue these individual public servants in federal court. And because of the work that we'll have done by this point, they will be boxed in. It'll be a sort of a checkmate at that point. They won't have a leg to stand on because they will have been given notice and opportunity. They will not have been able to prove their authority. An injunctive relief will already have given. So by the time we get to sue them in federal court, it's going to be pretty straightforward. And at that point, we'll be relying on a very select number of people to pursue that court and to present our case. So now I'm going to move more into what we need from you. So we need you to join us today, and we're talking about very soon. We're doing this now. Again, the paperwork's been worked out, the procedures have been worked out. So it's really just a matter of you joining, declaring that yes, you want to be a leader. You want to be one of the 10, minimum of 10 in your county, to put the county health directors on notice. And so, yeah, well, I'm going to ask you to register today online, which is going to give you the opportunity to declare once and for all that you're in it for the long haul. We're talking about a 2-month period here, primarily, with approximately maybe 10 hours of work altogether. And the paperwork will be sent with registered mail. So there's a costs per document to send over the period of time with the post office. And then we also have a website where all of the documents, the templates, all the instructions are going to be stored in one repository, and you'll have a login. So it's a membership, private membership login that allow you to get access to this information as we proceed over the next 2 months. So it's important, though, that everyone, again, as I said earlier, not simply sign off on this because you think it's a cool thing, but rather you need to know yourself as a common law person, who you are as God's creation, that you stand on terra firma, and the fact that you're alive and you're breathing is enough to establish your authority. You don't need anyone's permission. And in fact, you can open your mouth, so to speak, through written, in this case, through written paperwork, and take action. But you really need to educate yourself on the principles, paperwork, and processes of common law. Again, if you've done the Great American Law series, you're good to go. That was the intention of that course, indeed, to establish a firm foundation that for the rest of your life you'd be able to take common law principles and move in any direction you choose, including this initiative. So for those of you who haven't, though, we'll have to maybe do a one-on-one evaluation, kind of like when you're learning a language. Before I know where you're at, I need to know what you've learned already and help you get to where you need to go. And then we also need you to find other leaders to meet that 10 members per county minimum. So in as much as you'll be able to sign up today, you'll be able to get access to the first documents, and you can start customizing them for your county. We're going to ask you to hold off on sending those until we've got 10 people in your county. And so if you, for example, maybe just grab your husband, or maybe somebody you've been talking with about these things, and you can get them to join you, that would be great too. Your husband or wife, your mother, your father, your children, your neighbor, there's somebody in your life who is right there ready to go through this process with you, and you can do it together. You can print out the documents together, you can customize the documents together. It can be a thing to do together. And then you will indeed file that paperwork. And even though I have here that you have to have it notarized, there's in terms of a note, you don't have to have a notary public, but there is a common law version where just because of 10 people in your county are doing the same thing, it's synonymous with notarization. So I want to make sure that you know who the 10 people are in your county, that you have some relationship with them. And then later down the road, again, when it's time for just any number of people to join on to the suit and add their names to the adjoinder, we'll definitely be calling on you to help with that. So from the beginning, we invite you to start talking with other people about what you're doing and what it means, and introducing the whole idea of common law to people, and in anticipation that maybe they will be great candidates to join the adjoinder when that happens later down the road. Today is your day to choose. For those of you who want to be leaders, who want to join us in this, we're going to ask that you put $100 on your credit card. And then when all the paperwork is done, all the way through what's called the notice of estoppel, then you get a full refund of your money. So this is it's a way to really determine if you're serious. So it's simple. It's a simple $100. Again, full refund once the paperwork's done.